Welcome to 360 Sports Network, week number 2 recap. I'm Greg Peugeot, and with me tonight are Alex DeLaverson and James Dotson. Gentlemen, how are you out there tonight?
I'm doing well. It was an interesting weekend of football, to say the least. A lot of things surprised me, a few things disappointed me, but I'm getting ready for this Monday night game and just can't wait for week 3 to begin.
Yeah, man, it's a rip-roaring start here. A lot of close finishes and a couple of surprising blowouts. It's another injury-prone week still, though, and that's the biggest issue right now in a lockout season.
Yes, and you know what? There's been a lot of unexpected fantasy upcoming stars coming up here as well, coming out of week number 2. So let's with no ado here, let's start in with probably one of the most talked about games over the water cooler today, and that is, of course, Buffalo and Oakland. Oakland travels to Buffalo, and actually Oakland beat up on Buffalo for about almost 2/3 of the game, about 3/4 of the game. But then Buffalo mounted a fantastic comeback. James, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, I thought my fantasy season was over. I picked up Fitzpatrick, and he starts off with a terrible first half. But, yeah, comes out and gets finishes the game with 5 touchdowns in a row pretty much for Buffalo when they were down 21-3 to get 5 touchdowns down the stretch of the game, including a back-and-forth fourth quarter. That was an exciting finish. And Buffalo starting 2-0 with, 41 points in the first game, 38 in the second game. We're looking at a new offensive juggernaut here in the NFL.
Yeah, it's absolutely astounding that Buffalo has actually put up over 40 points in the course of the game here. I think a lot of it can be said about Chan Gailey's influence. Fitzpatrick has 28 of 46 for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. And, of course, Fred Jackson had 117 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Alex, do you have anything on that particular game?
Yeah, I think Buffalo is the real deal. Some people shouldn't be too surprised. Buffalo did put up some good fights last year, especially at Pittsburgh, a game where they should have won if it wasn't for God intervening for Stevie Johnson's touchdown in overtime. With that being said, they had 2 quality wins. But yeah, putting up close to 40 points yesterday and 41 points the week before. This team's definitely the real deal. I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He should get a pretty decent contract coming soon. I like Fred Jackson. I even do like Steve Johnson. So I don't think people should be too surprised. I don't think anyone's expecting them to go 13-3 and win the AFC East, but this team can definitely get to 9 or 10 wins pretty easy.
Another game that had some really interesting outcome was Detroit versus Kansas City. Detroit scoring 48 points on a hapless Kansas City team. James, do you have anything to say about the Detroit Lions rebuilding since 1957?
Detroit is the real deal. I mean, the Chiefs, yeah, they got blown out in week 1, so you kind of could have expected them to put up a similar performance, but I mean, they were lifeless to begin with. But as soon as Jamal Charles went out with his knee injury, which reports are now in official, a torn ACL, he is out for the year. Once that injury happened, it knocked all the air out of the lungs of the Kansas City Chiefs, and Detroit just looks awesome on both sides of the ball. They forced 6 turnovers on defense, allowed only 3 points, and the offense was more impressive. Scoring 48 points, Stafford with 4 touchdowns, almost 300 yards, Javad Best with a touchdown on the ground. And I'll tell you what, the best-looking receiver out there is probably Nate Burleson. He's always open because they have to double-team Calvin Johnson, and yet when Calvin gets the ball thrown his way, guess what? He still ends up catching it. So Detroit is going to be a force. I don't think they'll win the division. I still think it has to go to Green Bay, but Detroit is going to be right there fighting for a wild card spot.
Detroit is certainly becoming the juggernaut in that Norris division up there. Kansas City, speaking about a team that's imploding right now, Matt Castle was 15-22 for 133 yards, had 3 interceptions and a fumble. Now, this is a team that has only scored 10 points in 2 games. That's a recipe for disaster, as far as I can see.
Well, Dawson said one thing, that the Chiefs started to lose air when Jamal Charles went down. Well, honestly, I don't think they had it to begin with. No one on the team's performing at all. I mean, when the Lions run up a score on you, you know it's pretty bad, despite you know who it is. But yeah, Charles is gone. Castle's been playing pathetic. Bo, I don't know where he's been. As far as the Lions go, they are the feel-good story of these first 2 weeks. They will keep momentum. I said the Bills were going to 500 mark. I think the Lions will go even beyond 500 marks if Stafford can stay healthy. There's no reason to think this team can't win 12 or 13 games, especially in the NFC where teams aren't that strong. So Lions are the real deal. Chiefs will probably be getting Andrew Luck sometime in April.
Interesting. Let's move along to the Sunday night game, Atlanta versus Philadelphia. And, of course, the outcome was not good for Philadelphia, where Atlanta bested them 35-31. Matt Ryan had 4 touchdown passes. Tony Gonzalez starting to become relevant again. Dodson, what do you say about that one?
It's about time that they start working Tony Gonzalez like that. He's too good of a player not to be used, and they just have forgotten about him in the Matt Ryan era. So he's finally realizing, oh yeah, I have this great guy who I can rely on over the middle. So I'm glad to see that happen. The Philadelphia Eagles, though, we knew this was going to happen. We knew Mike Vick was going to get injured because he gets hit too much. Now, the question is, how long will he be out? At least the backup, Kafka, did all right in his time in there. He actually didn't look too bad. But in all honesty, Atlanta fans got everything they could have ever wanted out of this game. They got to see their old playmaker come down, have a pretty good statistical game. Yeah, he had 3 turnovers, but he still made some big plays, impressive plays, and their hometown Falcons won. So they got the best of everything down there in Atlanta.
And one thing I'll add to that, whether we're fans cheering for Michael Vick, even Atlanta fans, the other half of the fans who still mourn for those dogs got what they wish too, with Vick being concussed and out of the game. The thing is with Michael Vick, I mean, that injury wasn't like he took off and running too. That was just nasty to watch. So, so much of the Eagles' success revolves around Michael Vick. Kafka didn't play horrible yesterday as a backup. But you know how long things go with concussions now, and the new CBA, they're more aware and more stern with terms of getting players back onto the field. So if Vic can find a way to stay healthy, just kind of like Matt Stafford does, the Eagles should have no problem. I think the biggest storyline of the game was the drop by Jeremy Maclin.
Another game that proved to be rather exciting was San Francisco against Dallas. Dallas certainly had the rally caps on in this particular game.
I was very worried for Cowboys fans everywhere, myself included in that, Cowboys fans everywhere, with Tony Romo early on in the game going down with an injury. John Kitna is still a capable guy, but he is not Tony Romo. I don't care what anybody says about Tony Romo, though. He showed what he is capable of doing. 345 yards, 2 touchdowns with 2 broken ribs and a collapsed lung. This is a trooper for you right here to be able to come back, lead your team to victory. And what can you say about Miles Austin? 143 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, yeah, he's going to be out for the next 2 or 3 weeks, which isn't going to help. But at least the Cowboys are they have pretty good depth at wide receiver. Jesse Holley, a no-name, caught a 77-yard pass in overtime to lead to the game-winning field goal. So I think the Cowboys, this is the kind of thing they needed. They need a spark to get them rolling. And the injury bug might hurt them, but I think that they'll be able to keep rallying after this.
Yeah, Dawson, I kind of agree with you there. People say Big Ben's a warrior for playing with the broken nose. Now look at Tony Romo playing with a collapsing lung, broken ribs. I still think it's going to take a few more games for me to be sold on Tony Romo as a leader for this team. I mean, let's be honest, he does have a knack for blowing up in the fourth quarter, but he did come through yesterday. If the Cowboys can stay healthy, they definitely can be a force in the NFC East.
He's taken too much heat, Alex. He's taken too much heat, and then, especially this week after his collapse last week against the Jets, He's been taking so much the entire week, and he just went and shoved it all in their faces. Good for you, Tony.
Well, I was rooting for Tony Romo. I like the guy. I do think he can be a great quarterback, but I mean, he has been struggling in the fourth quarter in the past, and this is a step in the right direction. If things continue to go forward, then yeah, he could be an elite quarterback in this league. If he can just get over that fourth quarter hurdle, then he can be a complete quarterback. So I think the Cowboys can be for real if Miles Austin comes back, everyone comes back. I think Dez Bryant is a stud. I like Felix Jones. As far as the Niners go, there's not too much to say about the 49ers. I don't think they're a bottom dweller in the NFC.
You know, an interesting statistic here, though, everybody is either they either love Tony Romo or they hate Tony Romo. But here's a interesting statistic about Tony Romo. At this particular stage in his career, his numbers are almost identical to Brett Favre's numbers at this stage of his career.
Let's not forget that Brett Favre is a Super Bowl champion.
That's right. But Brett Favre achieved Super Bowl championship status later on in his career as well. I mean,
as far as the Cowboys are concerned, Tony Romo has a better winning percentage at this point in his career than a guy by the name of Troy Aikman, and he's only a couple games behind another guy, never heard of him, named Roger Staubach. So, I mean, I think that speaks enough right there that in the great organization, arguably the best in NFL history, you have this guy who's putting up numbers equal or better than the best quarterbacks that have ever been out there.
Moving along here, Pittsburgh versus Seattle. Pittsburgh basically pitched a nearly shutout throughout the entire NFL week 2 here. Big Ben looked really good, 298 yards and a touchdown. The defense looked strong. James, do you have anything to say about the Pittsburgh-Seattle game?
Well, there's really not much to say. Seattle just is not the quality of team like Pittsburgh is. Pittsburgh with a good comeback game after a disappointing week 1. Their defense was solid. Their offense could have been better at times. I just hope Ben can shake off the injury and be ready to go here in week 3.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Dotson there. I'm not going to give the Steelers a grade after playing such a incredibly inferior opponent in Seattle. I mean, my gosh, is this team just awful? I mean, it is putrid. It's a good thing the Steelers at least got the shutout because you'd be hearing a lot of angry fans in Pittsburgh, God forbid, if it was at least semi-close. Even Mike Tomlin said he still saw the same team from last week when they suffered a loss against Baltimore. So, obviously a nice win. They got another cupcake in Indianapolis next week. Usually don't say that, but with Manning gone, you can say it this time and probably one time only. So we'll probably want to know who the real Steelers are for a few weeks here.
Speaking about Indianapolis again laid another egg whenever they played Cleveland. Cleveland besting them 27-19. Peyton Hillis, 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. Colt McCoy was 22 of 39, 211 yards and a touchdown. Solid effort there by the Cleve Brownies there.
Yeah, this is what I expected out of Cleveland. I expected a lot of short passes from McCoy and a heavy dosage of Peyton Hillis. And this is what they should have done week 1. This is what they're going to do all year. And this is why they could be a force coming out of the AFC. And, yeah, there's not much to say about the Indianapolis Colts. They just are not a team without Peyton Manning. And for their sake and for the sake of the NFL, I wish Peyton Manning a speedy recovery.
Moving over into the other AFC North matchup where we had Baltimore versus Tennessee. Baltimore laying an egg. I guess this was their trap game there where they lost to Tennessee 26-13. James, any thoughts on that particular game?
Well, I saw a Facebook status that summed it up best. And the status read this, quote, "This is why NFL players didn't like playing the Pro Bowl the week after the Super Bowl." I don't know what to say. Ray Rice only with 18 touches is a little disappointing. I think that's the main thing to take away from their side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly like our Twitter feeds blowing up like how it was last week with Baltimore's going to the Super Bowl tweets. Yeah, just like Greg said, they laid an egg here. Definitely was a trap game. I mean, obviously as a Steeler fan, you're glad anytime the Ravens lose, but you think to yourself, if the Titans can beat these guys, then definitely the Steelers can. So definitely not the same Baltimore team from last week. I don't think the Titans are really making much noise other than the game yesterday for the rest of the season. So we'll see what happens with both these teams. I do think it was just an aberration for the Ravens, and I still expect them to get into the playoffs in the AFC.
Another game that had AFC North ramifications was, of course, Denver besting Cincinnati 24-22. All the teams now in the AFC North are now 1-1, which is quite interesting in itself. But in that Cincinnati game against Denver, Andy Dalton had 332 yards passing, which I found was to be really remarkable for a rookie quarterback. And, of course, Denver, Willis McGahee had a touchdown. Decker had 2 touchdown receptions as well. So your thoughts on that game, Alex?
Well, the biggest storyline of the game for me is the whole Tim Tebow situation, especially him lining up a wide receiver. It's pretty clear that Kyle Orton's the guy down there, but fans are crying for Tebow. But, you know, if I'm John Fox and if I'm part of the Broncos organization, I don't give in to what my fans want. I do what I think is best for the team. As far as Andy Dalton goes, the whole Bengals organization, from what I'm reading, absolutely loves him. They love his leadership. They love his skills. He's definitely the guy and the leader down there in Cincinnati, and they could honestly care less about Carson Palmer right now. They got rid of Ocho Cinco. They got rid of T.O. Now there's no Palmer. They want to start over. They want to start fresh, and I respect that. And they think Andy Dalton is the guy to do that there in Cincinnati.
What I look at for the Bengals is just how young and talented this team is. You got Jerome Simpson in his 3rd or 4th year. A.J. Green with 10 catches and a touchdown his rookie year. Andre Caldwell's a young receiver. Jordan Shipley in his 2nd year. Jermaine Gresham, a rookie. Andy Dalton, obviously, a rookie. There's a million young guys in Cincinnati, and if they can all stay out of trouble, which is easier said than done for Cincinnati players, I think that Cincinnati could be a force to be reckoned with in the very near future.
Speaking about young and talented, let's look at the Carolina versus Green Bay game, where Carolina ended up coming up just a touchdown short there against the Green Bay Packers. But Cam Newton, once again, over 300 yards passing. Yeah, he definitely is a fantasy wild card here. And, of course, if you don't have Steve Smith picked up, shame on you, because this is definitely a fantasy scoring machine here with Cam Newton.
Yeah, I agree. If anyone has swag, it's Cam Newton. I mean, he defines it. I mean, 400 yards passing in 2 games. His first 2 games, that's unreal. Last week people said, oh, you know, it's the Arizona Cardinals. Don't look too much into it. Well, still, it's over 400 yards passing in your debut game. And now to do that against the reigning NFL champions, I mean, that's unbelievable. Look, I didn't think Cam Newton was going to have a decent year at all this year. I'm sure both of you agree. I didn't think he was going to be a bust or anything like that, but I thought he was going to develop into a pretty decent quarterback down the road. I never thought this was going to happen. I think another storyline that's being overlooked, though, is that of the situation of DeAngelo Williams. He was given a pretty big contract extension this summer, and he's done virtually nothing. He got 2 points for fantasy owners last week, and about a little over 3 this week. So if Carolina wants to start winning games and not just showing off Cam Newton's swag, he definitely has to get it together. So if he can get it together, and if Cam Newton somehow keeps this level of play up, they can start winning games and go on a run. Although expect Cam Newton eventually to come back down to rookie status.
Yeah, well, DeAngelo Williams, 9 touches. Jonathan Stewart, 14 touches. And Stewart, if I'm reading this right, had over 5 times as many yards. I expected this to be completely opposite. I'm a little shocked in that one, too. Very, very good observations there, Alex.
Speaking about swag, let's take a look at the New England Patriots against the San Diego Chargers. Tom Brady threw over 423 yards in their victory there over San Diego, and Rob Gronkowski, the tight end, 2 touchdowns in that particular game.
Aaron Hernandez is actually out for about a couple weeks now with a sprained MCL, I believe. So Gronkowski is going to have to pick up some more work, and he can deliver. The success to the New England Patriots last year and this year is the tight ends. They have both played extremely well. When Moss left, they changed things around. They got back to the Patriots of old when they just kind of, 10-yard in and out plays, not necessarily going deep down the field like they did with Randy Moss. And things have worked out for them. I mean, I have never seen I've never seen a proficient offense like this before. It's incredible. Even Ocho Cinco was in awe. That got him in trouble with Teddy Bruschi. So it's a machine like no other down there. The only thing I worry about, though, is let's not forget, the Patriots have not won a Super Bowl in 7 years. So something is going on down there. The Jets have, I think, figured out a way to stop the New England Patriots. And like Rex Ryan said a few weeks ago, other teams got to find a way to beat the Patriots. It can't just be the Jets.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you what, with New England, Ocho Cinco, they think may be a distraction for the team. That's what everybody's saying. I think he's just more of a distraction for defenders. They're actually looking Ocho's way when he's really not doing much to help the offense, and that's letting these tight ends and the second and third wideouts and Deion Branch and Wes Welker be just wide open out there. And Tom Brady's just picking apart any defense he faces.
Yes, but from a fantasy football standpoint, Ocho Cinco, if you have him, I think it's time to drop him because he's just not going to do anything for your team. Well, that kind of wraps it up here. Appreciate hearing any and all comments from any and all of you that are out there. Please feel free to basically say that, hey, we agree or we disagree, or, hey, we like French fries with that too. So looking forward to hearing from you. And for Alex and James, I'm Greg Fischero. Have a great night.